This is the 9th topic in the Make Cancer History course. This is all about crowdfunding for cancer patients. So I'm going to talk about what crowdfunding is and why it's so important as a cancer patient to do crowdfunding, even if you're in a strong financial situation at the moment. I'll talk about the practicalities of doing crowdfunding, like choosing a crowdfunding platform, although actually that's very easy because you should basically use GoFundMe, but I will explain why. I'll also explain about what you can do to get more donations and a bit about using donations, because I think we always think of crowdfunding as, at least as cancer patients, crowdfunding as something that you use for just your treatment. But as cancer patients, we have many cancer related expenses, as do our families. So yeah, don't think of crowdfunding as just being limited to paying for treatments. So what is crowdfunding and how did it start? Well, I think the most famous crowdfunding platform is Kickstarter. That was primarily for people making physical products to sell, but needing a certain number of orders to be able to make, 2,000 leather belts. For some reason, Kickstarter always has belts and bags and tables, that kind of thing. And then there's also Indiegogo, which is very popular for music. So again, similar thing, people who wanted money to go to a recording studio and do 500 CDs and didn't have the cash on hand. And Indiegogo is also very popular for filmmakers, kind of independent filmmakers doing short films and feature-length films too. And then there's a couple which are far more aimed at fundraising. So there is Just Giving, and there's also GoFundMe. It makes a lot of sense to choose GoFundMe as a platform, because even though it is not very good, the big thing about GoFundMe is that as the donations come in, they are passed directly to you. GoFundMe takes a cut. I think currently they take 30 cents per donation plus 2.9% handling fee. That changes from time to time. I think they spent over a year not taking any fee at all. Instead, they had a little section where the person donating could give a tip to GoFundMe. Presumably that didn't work out so well. So they're now back to a fixed fee plus a percentage as a handling fee. With things like Kickstarter, you set a target that you're raising money towards and a deadline. And if you don't get the target, then you don't get any money. There is an option to set a target and have it so that you get money even if you don't reach the target. But in that case, the cut taken by Kickstarter is bigger. So that's basically what crowdfunding is. Over the past sort of 8 to 10 years, I guess, a lot of people are using crowdfunding for medical treatment, which is very sad in some ways. However, I mean, it saved my life. There's no, I know that sounds melodramatic, but I'm alive 6 years after my terminal diagnosis for 2 reasons. One is that I've had cutting edge cancer treatments, particularly adoptive cell immunotherapy, and the other one is that I'm in a position to pay for it thanks to the very generous donations of something like 1,000 people over the past 6 years, most of whom I don't know, which is incredible and very gratifying. So a really important question, I think, with crowdfunding is like why people give. And I think that people want to help out directly. People who know you are often kind of frustrated not knowing the best way to help out, and it's hard for them to judge when you need to be left alone and when you need some gentle non-cancer related conversation, or when you need a ride to the hospital. So donating to your fundraiser is a very direct and straightforward thing for them to do. But then many people are giving who are complete strangers and have heard your story. They may be a bit disillusioned with giving to big organizations. Sadly, in many countries like the UK, not for profit is kind of a euphemism for mainly for salaries, which is unfortunate, but that's how it works, sadly. So I think a lot of people now are skeptical of big organizations and would much rather give the money to you. And then there's kind of a related category of people, I guess, who want to be involved in the story. And their cancer stories are very sad, common but very sad, and people want to get involved, people want to help out, people want to make a difference. So I think that's really why people donate, and the reason I'm explaining that is because you should bear that in mind, particularly if you feel bad about asking for money like I do, or you feel embarrassed when people donate quite a lot of money like I do. Being British, I'm quite squeamish about money for some reason, but yeah, British people are very squeamish about money and also eating offal. The French love eating offal, but for us Brits, we're a bit squeamish about that. So why is crowdfunding so important for cancer patients? Well, a philosopher once said, if you have enough money to solve a problem, you don't have a problem. And very distressingly, many cancer-related problems can be solved quite easily with some money. In some cases, quite a lot of money. In many cases, not as much money as one might think. Money is the second most powerful thing in the world. So most powerful is ideas, second most powerful is money, third most powerful is like technology and systems and processes, fourth most powerful is people, and fifth most powerful is time. So that's in kind of in the business world, that's called leverage or leverage, as my American friends like to say. So money is like second most powerful thing after ideas. Obviously, you need to know about advanced treatments, for example. Victor Hugo said, there's nothing more powerful than an idea that whose time has come. A bit more powerful actually than that is an idea that comes at the right time. So if you hear of a new medical treatment at the right time for you, that can be game-changing. Another big thing about money as a cancer patient is that money helps us get time. And I'm not referring to like living longer, although very much that's in the forefront of this is accessing new treatments using the crowdfunding. But so there's this concept in cancer called time toxicity, and we spend as cancer patients, you spend a lot of time traveling to and from hospital, spending time at hospital, waiting for treatment, having consultations. Time gets stolen from you by the treatments because of the side effects. So you may spend a day at the hospital having chemo drips and tests and other treatments and consultations, and then you get home and the next 3 days may be wiped out with chemo side effects. So chemotherapy particularly steals your time. So money allows us to get some of that back, because if we spend it on things that get us time, if we spend it on things where we usually be doing something time consuming and we spend the money instead. I mean, a trivial example would be ordering delivery food or pre-made food instead of cooking yourself. So that's like a really important reason for crowdfunding, is to get that money to buy back some of your time. Another thing about cancer is it takes our attention a lot, and attention is, as humans, it's our second most valuable thing after time. But being able to use money to quickly solve issues and stresses is really important. So that is why I think crowdfunding is so important. Even if you are in a good financial situation at the moment, crowdfunding, the money it brings, gets you back some of your life, hopefully extends a life with advanced treatments. So on the subject of using the money, so one obvious thing is for treatments that are not available to you in your public healthcare system, if you're in a country that has public healthcare, and also testing as well. So many countries that have public healthcare doesn't cover these advanced tests, the liquid biopsy tests, for example, where you're looking at circulating tumor cells or free DNA. Those tests can be very useful if you are, for example, if your tumor markers are not responsive. So in my case, we track two tumor markers, CEA and CA19-9, and they're both useless for me. They don't go up and down with my cancer. So advanced testing like circulating tumor cells is a good way to maybe get some idea of what's happening. Another reason for advanced testing is those full genome sequencing ones like MSK Impact and Foundation 1 testing, because those can show potential treatments. If you have a certain mutation that is maybe associated with another cancer, then you could potentially benefit from the treatment of the other cancer. Classic example of that would be for colorectal cancer. I think about 10% of colorectal cancer patients are HER2 positive, which is a mutation associated with breast cancer. So those patients who are HER2 positive might benefit from targeted treatments for HER2 positive breast cancer. So having the genetic test is very good, potentially very useful, and of course it's very likely if the test does find actionable mutations, your public healthcare is not going to pay for that. In the case of the UK, there's public healthcare and there's private healthcare, and sometimes it makes a lot of sense to pay for private healthcare, at least for part of your healthcare. The reason for that is, well, there's a few things. So one thing is the UK has what's called health rationing, which means different health areas decide different things to spend the money on. And it may be that you're in an area that doesn't cover a certain treatment or test that you want or need. And there's also waiting lists. There's waiting lists for treatment, but sometimes it's just also takes a while to actually see a consultant, which is the British term for like a specialist doctor. And one of the, I don't know if it's a dark secret maybe of the NHS, the National Health Service in the UK, is that almost all the consultants are working in the private healthcare system as well. So you may be in a situation where you're told you need to wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks to see a consultant, and you could look up the consultant on Google and find that they're at your local private hospital 1 day a week, and you can pay, I don't know, £150, £200 to go and see them. And that might not make a medical difference, but it's 3 weeks of waiting is incredibly stressful when you have cancer growing inside you. So getting quick access is another reason to use crowdfunding. As cancer patients, we have a lot of treatment-related expenses that are not the treatment themselves. An obvious one is travel to and from hospital, particularly if you're traveling far for treatment. In the UK, you may have to move house, at least temporarily, to be in the kind of, I don't know what you call it, the catchment area, I guess, of another hospital that has a particularly good treatment. You may have a treatment that requires spending time in a distant city, and crowdfunding allows you to rent an Airbnb instead of being in a guest house, be much more comfortable, be close to the hospital, whatever. So transport related expenses are a big thing for cancer patients. I'm just thinking, actually, in the UK, you typically have to pay for hospital parking. So to park at the hospital, you often have to pay. Being able to come back from chemotherapy in a taxi instead of on public transport is potentially very important. Particularly, so I do a molecular target therapy called bevacizumab or Avastin. When I have it, I can't really see for about 30 to 40 minutes, sometimes up to an hour. I can see a bit, but it's kind of all blurry. I wouldn't want to be driving home from hospital. So yeah, transport related expenses. Things like, so I mean, other like non-treatment related expenses are things like if you've lost your hair from chemo, being able to have a more pleasant wig, being able to get expensive skin creams that may be better for dealing with a skin rash than the kind of ones you're given by your hospital. Things to make you comfortable. So there are, for example, with chemotherapy, you get nerve damage in your in the limbs, so those peripheral nerves in your arms and legs. Some people find heat pads, heat machines help with that. You can get home hypothermia machines that use infrared. The kind of like heating devices people use for bad circulation. You can get electrical stimulation things. There's a class of machines called TENS, TENS. I should have looked up what that stands for, but it's something electrical nervous stimulation or electrical neural stimulation. That seems to help with nerve damage. So things like that. Paying for private nursing, home visits, that kind of thing. But then, and I guess those are all kind of obvious things, but then there's also, with crowdfunding, asking for money for things like subscription services. So you can get fresh food delivered to you with services like Amazon Fresh. Just things that you normally buy, having that on subscription is one less thing for you to think about. Cleaning services, all that kind of thing. And of course, things for your family as well. Often cancer patients will ask for funds towards a trip. For cancer patients with children, it's quite common to ask for funds to help with home tutoring, because children suffer a lot when the parents have cancer, especially on exam time. So a bit of help, home tutoring to help them get through their exams, like their in the UK, the GCSEs, A-levels, ASO, that kind of thing. incredibly important time for children to get through those exams. And if mum or dad's in the hospital all the time, it's a big thing. So yeah, so that's a lot about like how to spend the money. And it's only fair that I then say like how to get the money. So setting up crowdfunding is actually quite straightforward. You need to make a few decisions. The main thing is, are you going to be legally the person doing the fundraising, or is like a friend or family member going to be doing it and you're going to be the beneficiary? That's very important, depending on the legal situation in your country. So if you're, for example, if you're in the UK and you're on benefits and kind of like social welfare stuff, your benefits can be reduced or even stopped if you have a certain amount of savings. So if money is coming in to a bank account and you're getting ready to pay for immunotherapy, which may be tens of thousands of pounds or dollars or whatever, depending on where you are, legally, you may in your country be meant to declare that. However, there are ways, very completely legal ways. I'm not advocating, well, I do generally advocate fraud actually, but in this case I'm not. There are many legal ways to set up crowdfunding, maybe with a friend doing it, they're paying for your medical expenses, that kind of thing. So do check the legal situation. Then you need a bank account. It makes sense, if possible, to have a bank account that is only used for the crowdfunding. Again, like just to be legally safe, so that if you do get investigated by Inland Revenue Service or whatever at any point, you can produce bank statements and it's very clear, this is the crowdfunding money coming in, here's what I spent it on, that kind of thing. So that's kind of a decision, is like, are you going to be doing it, or is a friend or family member doing it for you? Obviously, you may spend a lot of time in hospital and it's just far more practical for a friend to be taking care of it for you. With GoFundMe, which is the platform I recommend, your friend can set up the crowdfunding. You can then be a beneficiary and it still goes direct to your bank account, or you can have it so that it goes to your friend's bank account and then they pay the expenses or hand you what's of used notes in a brown envelope in a pub car park, or however you want to do it. So that's kind of a decision. Crowdfunding platform, as I keep saying, GoFundMe, there's a lot wrong with it. I'm not going to go into that. However, it's pretty reliable. They take, I think it's 30 cents plus, currently 30 cents plus 2.9% of the donation. Money goes directly into your bank account. It's straightforward to set up. You can set it up in 15 minutes, I guess. Do make sure you use multi-factor authentication. So that's like where you get a code sent to your phone or another device. Multi-factor authentication is far less secure than people have you believe, but it is generally better than not having it. So yeah, make sure you switch on multi-factor authentication so that no one can or it's harder for someone to get in and change the bank account details to their bank. So the main thing you need to do when you set up crowdfunding is upload a picture. So if you go to my crowdfunding page, which is matthewdons.org, that's mathewdons.org. That is a web address I registered, and it forwards to the GoFundMe page. I don't off the top of my head know what the GoFundMe page is, but it will be like gofundme.com/, save Matthew because he's dying of cancer or something like that. So having a registering website name with Namecheap or GoDaddy or DreamHost or whatever registration system you want to use, that will be probably $10 to $15 a year. And you can just have that pointing at the crowdfunding thing. That's very useful to better give people a short, easy to type, easy to remember link that they can do for your crowdfunding. So then you need to choose a picture. I have a picture of me from just after, I think it's like maybe a couple of days after my very big surgery to remove primary tumor and a whole lot of other cancer. Yeah, so there's like a rather emotive picture I've chosen, I guess. But yeah, good picture, and they need to write some text. And the text is important because people are going to see that when they first go to the page. You want to write as much text as possible. You cannot write too much. So if I think maybe with GoFundMe there's maybe a 3,000 character limit or something like that, you want to use all those characters, right? So you want to be as clear as possible, as specific as possible, explain a bit of the background, explain a lot about why crowdfunding is important, what difference does it make, what you're wanting to spend the money on, how much things cost, what difference does the money make. So I always point out on my crowdfunding that if people give me a small donation, that pays for something like a taxi home from the hospital. That's massively significant to me. Also, I always point out that if people make a small donation, it just keeps the crowdfunding page alive and people see donations coming in and it causes more donations. So yeah, that's really important. The most powerful word in the English language is not please, which we're taught as children, but it's in fact the word you, and you and yours and your. So it's really important to use that word and those related pronouns as much as possible. So writing things like maybe you have been affected by cancer, or I'm sure you can imagine how devastating it was to get this diagnosis out of the blue. So using the word you and yours and your is really, really important. And then the next most powerful word in English language, or the equivalent in whatever your language is because. So giving people a reason why. How do things help? Why can't you get this if you're raising money for advanced treatment? Why can't you get that from your public health system? If you're raising money for one of these ridiculously expensive tests, why is the test significant? How will it help you? So giving those kind of reasons why, really, really important. Be as specific as you can. Be as open as you are comfortable. I find that difficult, but being open is really important, I think, because it builds trust, makes people find it easier to relate to your situation. You know, I don't write anything that is like begging for sympathy or whatever, but I do tell the truth about how unpleasant some of the treatments are. Make sure you tell the whole story, because a lot of the people visiting the page won't know anything about you and your situation. They may have been just happened to see the link pasted on social media, or someone sent them the link or whatever, or they're searching for something about cancer and your page comes up. So making sure you tell the whole story. And And then the key thing to keep donations coming in is to do updates. So update with the good and bad news, update about what treatments you're having. Now with GoFundMe, when you post an update, everyone who's donated in the past, they get an email saying Matthew has published an update to his crowdfunding, and if you write a text update, it will include that in the email. I try to do video updates when I can, so the update just will say like a video message from Matthew. GoFundMe seems to only work with YouTube, so you have to sort of record your video, upload it to YouTube. That just is a very straightforward process. You can record it on your phone. If you've got a Gmail account, that automatically is a YouTube account. If not, just go to youtube.com and register for an account. Video updates help a lot because with video we can get a lot of information across quickly. With the text updates, I try and write concisely. I know that you find that hard to believe because I'm terrible at speaking concisely, but I do try to write concisely. And the secret to that is ruthless editing, right? So you read what you've written, and before you click send, I'm going to read it out loud. I'm going to cut out irrelevant information and irrelevant words. So it's easy to read and very clear. So yeah, doing those updates is really important. Another important way to get more donations is to encourage people to share the link. So if people paste it, particularly on social media, I personally have found Twitter completely useless in terms of getting donations. I've had a lot of people sharing my donation link on Twitter and not even one donation coming through. On the other hand, I found Facebook very powerful. I do not like Facebook. I do not condone Facebook. I'm not a fan of big tech. I'm particularly not a fan of Facebook. However, I found it absolutely invaluable for crowdfunding. So encouraging people to share, because then again, you can write in an update, you know, I'm now raising money for this certain type of immunotherapy. Here are the details. Please donate or share if you can. Because then you're giving people a chance to share. If they can't donate, hopefully some people will do both. But sharing the crowdfunding really makes a big difference. I mentioned before, it's useful to have a short web name or a specific, easy to remember web name pointing at your GoFundMe thing. And that's useful if you do any kind of PR. So if you get in a newspaper, local newspaper is quite easy to get into. Local radio, obviously with local radio, it's really important to have an easy to remember name, because someone listening to the radio is not going to be able to type www.gofundme.com/save Matthew because he has terminal cancer / or whatever the address of my GoFundMe is. So yeah, getting PR is it's time consuming, but it's relatively straightforward, especially local PR, and that can bring in donations, and it also helps people see that your campaign is like alive and going well. So for example, years ago, I was in a website of a newspaper that I'm not going to name because it was an appalling newspaper, utterly appalling British tabloid. However, they did cover my story. I only got like one donation from my story being on the website, but when I then published an update with a link to that story and link to the story on my Facebook page, then my previous past donors, many of those donated. So it like gave them a kind of a big stimulation to see that I was in the media. And then the final way to raise a lot of money is to ask people to fundraise for you on your behalf. So my dear friend who will remain, well, several of my dear friends are actually raising money for my immunotherapy. You could ask people to do events. Very easy event that raises quite a lot of money is some kind of auction. So you might ask local businesses to donate a service or product that's then auctioned. You may be able to get local or even national celebrities to sign some of those items, right? So a football shirt signed by a local football player, or something like that. That kind of thing can raise a lot of money, and an auction is quite easy to do. If you're going to do a raffle, any kind of prize draw, please check the legal situation, because in most countries there's some legal entity that oversees that. So in the UK, for example, it's the Gaming Commission, I think they're called. So yeah, please do check out the legal situation. But yeah, those kind of things, prize draw, raffle, yeah, those auction is like the ultimate in terms of least effort for maximum payoff. A lot of events just aren't worth doing to fundraise. One thing that is very powerful is if there's a local event happening, ask if they will collect money for you, because then it's the event's happening. I'm thinking actually, some friends of mine who I've never met were doing an event in the UK, and they knew about my cancer. They collected money at the event, and it was quite a significant amount of money very early on when I had zero money, and it was yeah, amazing. So thank you for that, Carl and Dan, and all the members of the Daily Text Facebook group. Really appreciate it. So yeah, that's like the super way to raise a lot of money, is to have friends and family raising money on your behalf. So I should finish there, as always I go on far too long, but I hope that has been useful. Yeah, crowdfunding is massively important as a cancer patient. It shouldn't be. Healthcare should be free for everyone, everywhere, at the point of use. If you have a terminal illness, I strongly believe that the expenses related to that should also be covered by society. I don't feel that just for like touchy-feely reasons, but just hard economics. It's much, much, much more sensible to take care of people with serious illnesses and give them the best possible treatment as soon as possible. That's cheaper in the long run for countries. Anyway, that is far beyond the scope of this topic, but thank you for listening, and I hope you found it useful.